It is a very good afternoon. It is Niall Boylan with you this afternoon. Now, I have to be honest, a bit of a false start there at the start. I do apologise for those who had to reopen it on Twitter and Facebook. I don't know what happened. It was a glitch, a gremlin, as they say. Speaking of gremlins, RTE, those little demons, are at it again. The headline on RTE this morning: Ireland 20 times more likely to experience its highest ever temperature of 33 degrees. Now, how do they work this one out? Do the people out in Maynooth who waste our taxpayers' money, do they go, right, think of a figure, 32 degrees. That's the highest we've had. Let's go for 33.5 and work backwards. And see, can we figure out, a number or a multiple that's a possibility of reaching that temperature this summer? Is that what they do all day? Let's just calamitize the whole thing. Now, let's be clear. Over the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've had lower than average temperatures, which must be really pissing off all the climate alarmists at the moment, because they predicted last year, of course, that this year would be the hottest year in history. And that really hasn't happened yet. Actually, we've been nowhere close to it on average temperatures. So they must be really annoyed at the moment. So they're coming up with these multiple figures to make it sound like, well, look, there's a possibility. You might as well just turn around and say it's going to be -3 in August. You know what I mean? Because we don't really know. Because nobody can really predict it to that level. Anyway, look, thanks to the people at Maynooth University, it's good to know that you're not bored out of your heads. Now, speaking of bored out of my head, I certainly wasn't bored out of my head when I was reading this piece. David Quinn, the Sunday Indo columnist, tweeted yesterday: the state is about to ditch the aim of fostering a sense of Irish identity from the primary school curriculum, which promotes the question, if Ireland won't foster a sense of Irishness, who will? Now, the piece he refers to is, and I'm going to read it out to you here: Irish education reflects the historical and cultural roots of Irish society and seeks to give children the appreciation of the continuity of the Irish experience and their relationship with it. It acknowledges that the child's right to understand and participate in the diverse culture, social and artistic expression of that experience, and to appreciate and enjoy the richness of the Irish heritage. It reflects, too, current Irish social and cultural concerns, thus enabling children to contribute to the benefit from the particular qualities and advantages of modern Irish life and experience. Now, so that's going to be removed as far as I know, and I'll come to David in a second and find out exactly what he means by that. So here's the argument: that David Quinn is actually right, and we need to protect our Irishness at all costs. So what is our Irishness if we need to keep it and protect it? Is it the Céad Míle Fáilte, the Irish dancing, the Irish language, the teaching of Irish history as a priority in schools, our Catholic roots, and all the things that make us proud to be Irish? Or is David Quinn wrong, like me? An old-fashioned dreamer who won't accept the world as a global village and that we are citizens of the EU and the world. And with the expansion of communication and people moving freely around the world, that ethnic identification is no longer priority, and that we are only Irish in name but not in nature anymore. After all, only 12,000 of us in the population of 5 million people actually speak Irish on a daily basis. So do you see protecting Irish identity as a priority? Or is David Quinn wrong? And am I wrong? Because I probably agree with him. Are we both wrong? Are we kind of stuck in the past? Let me know what you think. Should we be protecting our Irishness? The number, if you want to text or WhatsApp, is 085 100 22 55. Let me go to David Quinn from the Sunday Independent. David, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
David, are we stuck in the past, me and you, thinking we should be protecting our Irishness at all costs?
Well, no. In fact, I would say, all right. So what's going on, as you said, is we have a revision of the primary school curriculum going on, and that's being conducted by the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment and the Minister for Education, Norma Foley. So the present curriculum was designed in 1999 under the then Education Minister, no less a figure than Micheál Martin. And so as you read out there, The present curriculum, the one that dates back to 1999, has this section in it about fostering a sense of Irish identity, which is now mysteriously gone. And I would argue that is probably more important than ever to foster some kind of a sense of Irish identity in the way America fosters a sense of American identity. So if we're Irish in America, we're Irish Americans. Italians are Italian Americans, Jews are Jewish American, and so on down the list. But they're always American. So they have these hyphenated identities, Irish-American, and so on down the list. Now, it'd be a very strange thing if Ireland, as the years go on, doesn't have Polish-Irish. So you don't have the hyphen, you're just Poles, Filipino-Irish, Nigerian-Irish, and so on down the list. But if you don't have something in Ireland that unites all the new groups that have come in, like Poles, like Filipinos, like Indians, like Nigerians, and so on and so forth, if there's nothing uniting them, then we become a much more disunited and less socially cohesive society. And if you're living in Ireland, just as if you're living in America, surely what's going to unite you is some kind of a sense of local identity, which in our case is Irish. Because why would you ditch that? Well, in fact, it's more important than ever as we get more and more immigrants coming into the country that there is some kind of identity that unites us all.
But we've been losing that for many years. It's not just the fact, of course, we have many immigrants and diversity coming into the country as well. We've been losing that for many years. When you take, say, somewhere like Wales, right? They've held on to their language. They held on to their identity. When you're in Wales, you know you're in Wales because people speak differently, generally speaking. And the street names are different. And you know you're not in England. You know you're not in Scotland. But in Ireland now, and it has been for many, many years, you could really be anywhere when you're in Dublin. I was in Henry Street recently, and it was difficult to spot what you might claim to be an indigenous Irish person. Now, many were tourists. Many were people who were probably living here many years, be it Polish or Latvian or Nigerian or whatever it is. Ireland has become, because our population has declined drastically over the last, decade in particular. We're down to 1.5 now, well below replacement level. If we didn't have that diversity and we didn't have people coming to the country, we'd be in a serious economic problem because we wouldn't have a population of 5 million people. We'd be down to 3.5 million or something ridiculous like that. But you're comparing it to America, which is very different. America's always been that melting pot of different, indigenous populations, whereas Ireland has only ever been about the Irish. So, unfortunately, me and you maybe are, living back in the past, dancing at the crossroads. Ireland has to change, doesn't it?
Well, do you see, so we're obviously becoming much more of an immigrant society, and we're becoming a little bit more like America in that sense. In fact, we have a higher percentage of people born outside the country now than America has living in it. I think we're about 20% born outside the country. America's something like 15% born outside the country. There's obviously lots and lots of people descended from people who came in before. But Ireland actually needs to start looking at the melting pot model now, the way America has, or Australia has, or New Zealand has, all these countries like Canada. Because the fact is we do have a lot of immigrants here, and we do have to put serious thought into, okay, how do we integrate them? Because if we have no plan for integration, then we have a recipe for a lack of social cohesion and possibly disruption in the future if there's nothing to unite us around. So, I think like the melting pot model, which we haven't had to have in the past, because as you say, we're a very cohesive, ethnically homogenous society. So that's gone. I can't see any way to bring that back. We can argue
unless we all start having 5 kids again.
That would do it, yeah. Ultimately we have to look at fertility rates because, 1.5 is way below the replacement level of 2.1, and that means a very rapidly aging population. And the answer, some people say, is immigration, but actually it's not really, because immigrants also get older and immigrants are also having fewer children. There's only one part of the world now where birth rates are well above sort of the replacement level, and that's sub-Saharan Africa. But most of the rest of the world is now below replacement. So the world is going to be in a competition for immigrants in the future. So thinking that immigration long-term is going to solve your problem of having a very low birth rate is just a fool's game. Ultimately, we have to boost the birth rate. All countries have to do this. They have to get them.
Yes, we need to encourage the family.
They're in trouble.
Yeah, but we do need to encourage the family, and I know the Hungarians have tried that by offering taxes to those, tax-free for women who decide to have children or extra children. So I don't know whether, and I don't think that actually really worked. So I think there's a case here in Ireland particularly whereby people don't want to have children for multiple reasons. And now they're all little kind of, I suppose, nails in the coffin. I mean, yes, it was, free contraception for people. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but that, again, is a discouragement to have children. And the fact that you can't afford a 3-bedroom house anymore, you might only afford a 2-bed apartment or whatever it is, that discourages you having more than 2 children. All these things discourage people from having children. But getting back to our Irishness, again, comparing it to America, America's quite patriotic. They're very fond of their Americanness. But we're not. We're not as patriotic as other countries. Like the flag in this country, for example, is seen as some sort of negative thing. It shouldn't be, but it is seen as some sort of negative thing. If you see somebody with an Irish flag, he's looking for trouble. You know what I mean? So he must be right wing or something like that. So I mean, it is patriotism in this country is seen as a negative thing. Now I don't know whether that's to do with the troubles in the north over the last 50 years or not, but it is seen as negative.
Yes, it is, yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, nationalism has a problematic history because you can have extreme nationalism. You can have extreme anything. I mean, any form of politics.
Yeah, but I couldn't put an Irish flag in my front garden tomorrow because if I did, people would be going, he must be a member of Sinn Féin, he must be Republican, he must be a mad nationalist or something like that. Whereas in America, I can stick an American flag in my front garden and people go, that's great.
Yeah, when I was living in Australia for a few years, and now I'm back a long time, so I don't know exactly what it's like now, but certainly when I was living there, it was quite common for Australians to have an Australian flag up on their front lawn.
Same in America. People have flags hanging out of their porches or sticking in the front gardens. Some people have flag poles with flags up on them. You know what I mean? But you can't do that here because you'd be seen. It's negative.
Yeah, so we're going to have to get over that. I mean, I was speaking to an American there who's been living here a few years, and he was saying, what always strikes him about Ireland compared to other countries is the absence of Irish flags. And this, again, is partly because, we have the legacy of the Troubles and all that kind of thing. But we're going to have to get past that, because if we don't get past that and we have no identity that unites us, and if you're in Ireland, surely by definition, the identity that unites you ought to be Irishness. So we're going to have to push past that and move towards this kind of more melting pot model, or I think we're going to be in trouble as we go down the line. And as I say in my tweet yesterday, if Ireland won't foster a sense of Irish identity, then who the hell is going to? Because we can hardly expect anybody else to do it for us. And you see, I say then in the reply, so it's going to have to be Joe Biden. Because if you remember, I asked that because when Irish Americans come here, what do they look for? They always look for, and this is what we put on for Joe when he was here, the traditional Irish dancing and all these sort of things.
The pint of Guinness.
Very, very almost cornily Irish. But it's what people look for when they come to Ireland from overseas, particularly those with an Irish heritage. And someday they'll come here and all that will be gone. And so it'll end up being Irish living abroad are the ones fostering a sense of Irish identity, and somehow we're forbidden to do it because somehow it's seen as problematic if you try to foster a sense of Irishness. But why was it acceptable back in 1999 and not now? I mean, the current curriculum...
Sorry about that. Sorry, go ahead, David. That was just somebody else.
So I was going to say the present school curriculum also says we need to foster a sense of Europeanness because we're obviously part of the European Union. That's also beginning to disappear. And what they're doing is they're emphasising that we're all global citizens now. But again, it's a very strange thing for Ireland not to somehow foster Irishness. However,
but we are. See, isn't this the thing? And I find myself sometimes thinking that I'm old-fashioned, right? And maybe you're old-fashioned too, David. And I know we have quite conservative views. But, the world, with the expansion of communication, with the expansion of travel, although I'm sure Eamon Ryan is not pleased about that, but the expansion of all those things, we are a global village. You can just jump on a plane now and fly to America, or you can jump on a plane and fly to Spain, or whatever it happens to be. And people move around Europe. Primarily, people are now moving around the world, of course. We're seeing that more so now than we've ever seen it before. So the world is just changing. And are we stuck, me and you and other people who may be conservative, are we kind of stuck in this little time warp that we want to keep it the way it is? But that's just silly because we can't keep it the way it is, can we?
Well, there was a book came out a few years ago. It was after Brexit happened. It was by a British writer called David Goodhart. And he actually voted Remain. But the book is called The Road to Somewhere. And so what he was saying is there's an increasing division in societies between those who are the sort of people who could live anywhere and don't have any particular connection to what's local in particular. And he said the road to somewhere is there's a lot of voters, nevertheless, want their country to look like it's somehow rooted in its own history and its own culture, and there's some kind of a continuity. That if you're in Ireland, it's recognisably Irish in some ways. Say in Wales, it's recognisably Welsh. Because if everywhere ends up looking the same, the weird thing is you'll actually live in a less diverse world. I mean, if you go to Thailand, and Thailand doesn't look like Thailand, it looks like anywhere, all right? And it doesn't look like somewhere, then you actually end up with less cultural diversity. So that'll be a very weird thing. And if, again, people come from overseas and Ireland looks like anywhere and doesn't look like Ireland anymore, I mean, doesn't that mean we have a less culturally rich and diverse world? So I think it's something we absolutely have to debate. And you see, there is a growing backlash among voters against trying to make everywhere look like anywhere, if you catch my drift, making everywhere look the same, so nothing looks like itself anymore. And there is a definite pushback against that. So if you have our governments in all these various countries trying to make every country actually, weirdly, in the name of diversity, look the same as everywhere else, you will get a backlash against that, and the backlash is developing. And the government, in its new school curriculum, actually should be continuing to foster some kind of a sense of Irish identity. Otherwise, we have nothing in common.
There was one TikTok video I watched during the week, which was an African gentleman living in Ireland, and he was giving out about the fact that he had to opt his child out of school during Irish history lessons, and he believed Irish history lessons shouldn't be taught in Irish schools anymore because we've become such a diverse nation. Now, I won't go into who he was, but I know he's part of one of the NGOs. But in saying that, I mean, that's what you're up against when you have a changing population, that people's demands, cultural demands, need to be met, or do they need to be met? Who are
those demands coming from? You see, I question where those demands are coming from. Are they actually coming from the new arrivals? And frankly, I doubt it, because, I mean, they're coming to Ireland, they know they're coming to a particular kind of country, and it would be extremely unusual to expect Irish schools not to teach Irish history and culture. And I don't see the demand coming from them. I see it coming from a very kind of liberal cosmopolitan outlook that actually does want everywhere to become like everywhere else. All right? I don't think it's coming from the new arrivals. I mean, if you and I went to live in India, let's say, would we expect India to stop teaching Indian history? And would we expect it to stop teaching Indian culture in order to please us?
You wouldn't last long if you expected that.
Well, I mean, not in a million, but I mean, we'd never expect it. We would simply expect to be welcomed.
Yeah.
We'd expect, to integrate into that society, all right?
Yeah.
But we'd expect India to look like India. In fact, what would be the point of going if we want India to, I just pick India at random, to no longer look like India? And wouldn't the world again be a less rich place, culturally speaking, if India no longer looked like India in 100 or 200 years' time, because you're trying to satisfy people who are coming in and say, we don't want India to look like India, I don't feel welcome.
Okay, just very briefly, because I know you have to go, and I have to have loads of callers to get to as well. But the reason that we have these cultures all over the world is because of lack of transportation going back centuries ago, right? So when you had, people, tribes, if we want to go right back in time, going on different continents, you'd four main continents of the world going back thousands of years ago, right? And these tribes grew together in their own cultures. They had no way of communicating with each other. They had no way of travelling from continent to continent, apart from boats in those days, which are very slow, and it didn't happen too often. So, in other words, they grew and they maintained all of those cultures. Whereas now, that's not the world we live in. The world we live in now is, I can go and live in America. Americans can come and live in here. Polish people can live in Spain. It doesn't matter where people live anymore. So I think over time, maybe the next 1,000 years or the next 500 years, we're going to see cultures being diluted and, a single, probably global culture. Because we can see it in young Irish children already. I listen to young Irish children speaking in American accents. And that's just a simple, demonstration of it. You see them speaking because they're watching American television, they're watching TikTok, and they're listening to American accents, and they're speaking in American accents. So we're seeing that dilution or dilution of culture already.
Well, I mean, this could happen. I mean, like what you're describing could be the way things evolve over time. But I still think that countries like Ireland, countries like Wales, if I can call it a country, France, etc., Spain, Italy, etc. I mean, like, if they don't have something distinct about them, If they don't have some kind of a sense of historical and cultural continuity, then the world becomes a less rich place. And you also need something within the borders of a particular region that unites people, a common identity. And if Ireland is not promoting Irishness, as I say, then who the hell is going to?
Thank you very much indeed, David Quinn. I appreciate you coming to talk to us. David Quinn, columnist with the Sunday Independent, basically said the state is about to ditch the aim of fostering a sense of Irish identity from the curriculum, the primary school curriculum, which promotes the question, if Ireland doesn't foster a sense of Irishness, who will? Let me go to Stephen. Stephen, hi, how are you?
Grand, thanks, Niall. I'd love a proper sit down with David at some point, and I could probably play 3 or 4 of his interviews side by side with each other and record all of the dualities and contradictions and things like that. No more so than he could do with me, I'm sure, but it'd be very interesting.
Okay, well maybe I'll organise it if you like.
Yeah, that'd be lovely.
Okay, so getting back to Irishness, I mean, he has pointed out a problem, and they're removing this kind of whole paragraph from the curriculum, which talks about Irish education reflecting the historical and cultural roots of Irish society for children, and the right of a child in Ireland to be, instructed in the diverse culture of Irishness, so to speak. That's probably not a good thing, Stephen, but there is an argument that me and David are just old-fashioned.
Well, there's a yes and a no to both of those. Like, I don't know what the curriculum will now say about, in inverted commas, Irishness. And it's notable that you didn't define or ask him to define what Irishness is. Are we talking about, Celts and Vikings and...
Well, no, I said that in my intro. I did say in my intro. So what is Irishness? Is it Céad Míle Fáilte, the Irish dancing, the Irish language, the teaching of Irish history as a priority, our Catholic roots?
Soda bread, mam's apron and the wooden spoon. Or is it, as you said, the Céad Míle Fáilte? Is it the fact that, we are, we were an oppressed people for 800 years, struggling to reclaim our identity and create a new identity in the last 200 years? It's what is Irishness and what is going to be taught in the new curriculum? I haven't seen it, and they may have just reworded it, so I don't know. It's an interesting question. I don't cause for a great moral panic that David might seem to be trying to create.
No, I don't think it's a moral panic. I think, like everybody else, we want to retain our heritage. We want to retain our uniqueness because we are unique around the world. When you say to people, we're loved, the Irish are loved, aren't they? For whatever reason, our passport is one of the most widely accepted passports in the world. For that reason, we don't want to see that, I suppose, diluted in some way. I don't want to be in an Ireland.
Are so high that we could walk into any country in the world and get a job.
Yes, absolutely. We're trusted.
There are all of these really, really good things about coming from this little speck of rock in the Atlantic,
Yeah, but do we want to lose that?
But I don't. But lose it to what? What are we losing, and what are we trying to protect it from? David was talking about, American Irish or Irish Americans and Filipino Americans. We have Polish Irish, we have African Irish, we have Filipino Irish. We have all of these people here that are trying to live and integrate into our society, and we're incorporating parts of their identities into our society. That's just
okay. So then here's the question then, right? When we see, large groups of, say, African people, Polish people, whatever it is coming to Ireland, and we're seeing massive amounts of diversity. David mentioned actually more so than America. 20% of people in this country were not born in this country, right? We've one of the highest rates of people not born in the country. Now, by the way, that is a positive thing as well, because we need an increase in population. We really do, right? But in saying that, what we're doing is not just accepting that people have different cultures and wanting them to assimilate into Irish culture. We're also adopting their cultures, which means that dilutes our own culture as well. That's not the way we should be doing it, is the point of things I suppose David is making, is that we should be retaining our own culture. So in other words, if you come from Africa, that's great. You're from Africa, you have your African culture, you can do what you want in your house and everything else, with your children and everything else, but you're living in Ireland now, so you must adopt Irish culture if you want to live here. Is that not what the way we should be doing it?
Yeah, but that's integration, not assimilation. Getting somebody to put on green on Paddy's Day or observe Lent or whatever it is not Irishness. It's just, fitting in, for the want of a better term. It's not Irishness. You're either looking to integrate people and, as I said, take parts of their culture into us, and they take part of our culture into them, and retain their own identities, and we retain our own identities, or you're looking to assimilate and turn everybody who comes to Ireland into Catholic, Irish, whatever. Leprechauns.
Okay, we'll stay there for a second. Let me go to Aaron as well. Aaron, hi, how are you?
Afternoon, Niall. How are you?
I'm good, Aaron. Okay, Aaron, are we losing a sense of identity or Irishness?
I certainly believe we are, Niall. I really do. Interesting listening to your first two guests there. Certainly David, and indeed I don't get that gentleman's name there, but
Stephen.
They're bringing up some great points. But the gentleman there just mentioned assimilating or other people coming into our culture, and we're taking a bit of theirs, and then they're taking a bit of ours. Well, that's dilution, isn't it? Our culture, our society, our heritage, it is being taken. And I suppose on point there, yourself and David had a great conversation there regarding our flag. We had Councillor Tom MacDonald elected in Newbridge, and his first thought was to proudly wave the Irish flag, and he was slated all over this country for doing so.
But I believe that's wrong. That idea that somehow the Irish flag is something negative in Irish society, we need to get away from that. That's bonkers.
We certainly do, Niall. And another point that I wanted to bring up there is, in recent times, Michael Collins' hat was removed from the museum in Dublin because it offended people, because there was a speck or a smidgen, so to speak, of blood on the hat.
What?
And people were offended by this.
But he was shot. I'm assuming there would be blood on the hat.
Indeed. And it stayed for so long in our National Museum, and now it is removed because somebody is offended by this. And I suppose you ask a great question, Niall. What is Irishness? And are we losing it? Well, we're certainly losing it. But what is it?
What is it? Well, you tell me what it is then, because it's very hard to explain, isn't it?
Yeah, I certainly think you use the words, or I suppose the words would come to mind immediately, would be our culture, our history and our heritage. And we embrace that. And our culture, history and heritage would include the GAA, Irish dancing, speaking our native tongue, which indeed you alluded to the fact that only 12,000 people across the country do on a daily basis. You know, embracing, as I said, the Irish dancing, the GAA, our culture, our history. If we went to Canada, we might enjoy watching ice hockey. People come here and they embrace and they play GAA sports. In Ireland, I honestly believe we, good, bad, or indifferent, we're known as, to enjoy a drink and things like that. We have the land of 1,000 welcomes, Céad Míle Fáilte. The Irish people are hustle and bustle, hard workers, and a very welcoming people. And I certainly embrace all of the above. But for me, I certainly believe we're losing our identity, our history, our heritage and our culture. I certainly believe in actually relation to your two previous guests, I think they were both right in mentioning, but maybe they should look at the context of what they're saying. And like the last gentleman saying that we're coming in, we're taking people in here and they're more than welcome and they are coming into our society and indeed integrating. But by doing so, they're adding and diluting to our own. And eventually, if you keep doing that, we will lose that. I think that's a very simple statement to make, that if people keep doing that, and we keep embracing and taking on and taking on and taking on and changing and changing and changing, well then, things are going to change. And I wouldn't like to see too much change. We obviously have to evolve, Niall, and we obviously have to embrace difference. And change is a thing of life. But immediate and impact change, it's too much.
Okay, well, sorry, just to get back to Stephen. Stephen, I think Aaron makes the point really well, and he describes Irishness quite well there, by the way, having a drink and watching the GAA. I mean, that's all part of it, only a small part of it, but it is part of it. But, he makes a really good point. We accept this change. We accept it's become a global village. We accept that people, 20% of the people in this country, are not born in this country. But they have to change and assimilate or integrate into Irish society with their culture. And nobody's saying they should forget their cultures and they forget their heritage. But as time moves on and the second generation of their family should become more Irish than they are. But that's not happening. What we're seeing is our own heritage, our own history, and even silly things like this, if you want to call it silly, removing that paragraph from the curriculum, that talks about, protecting Irish culture. I mean, for children. I mean, that's wrong. We shouldn't be taking things like that out. We should be protecting all of those things. They're the one things that we really should be protecting.
Yeah, but again, protecting it from what? Like, yes, we are diluting Irishness in inverted commas, but we are reinforcing it as well by being Irish, by welcoming people, by saying you can come into our country, that you can live with us, that you can work with us, that you can go to school with us. And who says that all of the people coming into the country aren't doing any of that? That they aren't going and finding a job in the local supermarket or sending their children to the local national school if they can get a second place like any of the rest of us. You know, that they aren't doing all of this. Who is saying that? Where is the die-hard Asian or African or Filipino community in the country that effectively stays within itself and is doing nothing else to try and integrate? There aren't any people like that.
Yeah, but what we do see is maybe it's not so much the individuals who are coming into the country, but the social justice warriors. And Aaron talked about, sorry, for example, I'm not familiar with the story. You know, Michael Collins is happy and removed because somebody was offended by a piece of blood. You know, the idea that somebody wants, say, a Jesus Christ statue removed from a school because they don't celebrate Christmas in whatever culture they're from. All that kind of stuff that happens. It's all small stuff, but it kind of happens constantly. The idea that somebody would get elected, wave an Irish flag, and all of a sudden he's a head case. I mean, that's wrong. I mean, there should be nothing wrong with the Irish flag.
And there isn't.
But there is. Whether you like it or not.
Even in my opinion, there isn't. Even the people.
If you saw somebody walking down the road tomorrow holding an Irish flag, if it wasn't the day of an Irish football match, for example, and you saw somebody walking down the road with an Irish flag in his hand, you think he was up to no good.
I wouldn't, but because it doesn't bother me. Even the people in my area that are waving them out alongside signs of "get them out" and "no one's here" and "we say no," they have the right to use that flag. And I don't think that it's the worst use of the flag. I don't think it's a great use of the flag. But at the same point, if I put a flag outside my house tomorrow, nobody's going to bother if I put a Palestinian flag, a pride flag, whatever, outside my house. Nobody's going to bother me because at the same point as they're entitled to their opinions, I'm entitled to my opinions, and we actually let each other live.
No, but the point that I made earlier on, that is, it's seen. If you stuck an Irish flagpole in your front garden tomorrow, an Irish flag on it, people would have a view of you. They would have a negative view of you. They would think you're a Republican or a nationalist, extreme nationalist. Where if you're living in America and you put an American flag, they just think you're a patriot. That's quite normal for American households to have flags sticking out of the side of the house. We have.
Yeah, but this is also a country that teaches a very skewed version of their history, and there was no problems when America was settled or anything like that, and there's no problems in terms of race and diversity or anything like that. Very skewed education system, and I don't even think that they could define the word patriot no more than we could define Irishness.
Okay, well, hold on a second, because I want to go to Jonathan. I have a load of people to get to. I didn't realise there'd be so many people wanting to contact us in relation to this. But Jonathan, hi, how are you?
Well, Niall, how are you getting on?
Good. Jonathan, is there something wrong with Irishness? Are we diluting Irishness? Are we not hanging on to it, or do you really care?
I care. I am not a European. I am not a global citizen. I am an Irishman, born and bred in this country. Now, I'm not a racist. I'm none of that things. We're not deluded, but it's been given away. All these, the government are pandering to everybody else. And like you said there, you raise an Irish flag, you walk around with an Irish flag, you're some kind of hateful bigot, whatever it is. And that couldn't be further from the truth. We have to start bringing back. The culture to me is like trad sessions in pubs, storytelling, poetry, when I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, it was all of that, sing-song sessions, it was storytelling, poetry.
Yeah, playing the bear on.
We're all fighting for our identity. But like I said, you can say that lad there. I've seen videos of African lads shouting up and down in this country looking for land and ownership and, being hard done by. They came to this country to come to Ireland. And now I'm diluting the whole thing down. Like that man said there, the lad waved an Irish flag and he was slated. And then you had Luke Ming Flanagan when he was elected to Europe.
With a Palestinian flag.
And he was praised.
Yeah, I know. I thought that was bizarre.
So we're not looking. I think the biggest mistake in this country, and it goes back to the language. I had this conversation with my partner a couple of months ago. Look all across Europe. Like you said there, you go to Wales. They all have their language. The biggest mistake we made in this country, I think, when we got our independence back, we should have reinstated that language as a matter of urgency. The Irish language should have been reinstated as a matter of urgency. for your national, for your identity.
Well, Jonathan, when you say, we would need to hold on to, playing the bow around and having the sing-songs and all hanging around the pub and all that kind of Irishness, right? And I don't disagree with you. But the problem is, for young people, growing up in Ireland, who now grow up in this global world of social media, and as I said earlier on to David Quinn, every young person at 15 now, you see, has an American accent because they're watching American television. So they're not interested in playing the bow around anymore. They're not interested in sitting in the pub with a pint of Guinness. That's not what they do anymore. They live in a different world to me and you. And is it not a case that maybe we're just a little bit behind the scenes or behind the curve on this one, that we should be thinking, well, the world is changing?
But the world is changing now, and I understand. Like I said, progress. Like I said, more forward. But you come to this country, you don't set up your own little part of the world in the country. Like this thing they have, like communities. This is Ireland. You're either
that's a bit unfair, because look at what the Irish did in America. You go to Chicago, New York, there's Irish communities.
Yeah, but they still, like I said, they're still with the Irish flag beside their American flag.
No, what I'm saying is they sometimes they don't integrate as well as they should, because they'll set up in their own little communities in the Bronx or in Chicago, for example, on the north side.
But I don't even think this conversation is fair outside of this country, because, like I said, America asked for us all to go. They wanted us to go. They wanted us to kill off all the Indians and populate the land. They asked for all that over there. We didn't ask for it here. We said, come on in, we'll help you. And people are coming in now and taking advantage, left, right and centre of us. And we are losing our identity.
Okay, but here's the problem, Jonathan. It's a two-pronged sword, right? If we don't have people coming into the country en masse, and as I said, 20% of the population of this country were not born in this country now, which is one of the highest, by the way, around the world, okay? But if we don't have people coming in en masse, our population is in serious trouble.
Well, like you keep on saying, though, we should be promoting the family. And the nonsense of, like, the people in charge of this country, I'm sick to me. But I've never voted for one of them that's ever been in power in this country. Never have I. Never voted for any political establishment in this country that's been in power. It's nonsense. We can, like I said, we're pandering to everybody else and we're leaving their own to suffer.
Okay, sorry, Stephen, you listen to what Jonathan's saying. Again, I'm hearing people saying we're losing our identity, and they fear that. And I don't think it's kind of racist or anything like that. They just don't want to lose their identity.
Yeah, but your identity is what you feel. No, hang on, because I'm just trying to collect a thought. I don't feel any less Irish for having seen a half dozen people who don't look like they're from Coolock, the way my mother would say it.
Do you have any children, Stephen?
No, I'm single and I'm a gay man, and I couldn't afford children even if I wanted them.
Fair enough. Right, I have three, and I wanted to grow up and live in Ireland. In 25 years' time, what's this country going to look like?
And it will still be Ireland. It will still be the trad sessions, the bar runs, the Irish dancing,
I don't think it will.
the bread and the wooden spoon,
GAA game on a Sunday. Yeah.
I think we're going to spend
it will still be Ireland. Well, I'll see you in 25 years, and we can ask each other the same questions.
And we'll see, because, like I said, I live in the west of Ireland, and I can walk around parts of this country in the west of Ireland, go into shopping centres and towns and villages, and I can see more foreign nationals than I can Irish people out on the streets, and that's a fact. So
you're making an assumption, but yes.
No, I'm not making an assumption. I'm telling you what I see. It's not an assumption. It's what I see.
I think, Stephen, to be fair, you're saying that Jonathan's making an assumption. You're also making an assumption that all of that stuff will be here in 25 years' time. The Bear On and the GAA matches and everything else. And I hope it is.
I'm making an assumption based on hope and based on I perceive an amount of realism that we're not going to let these things disappear.
Well, no, I don't agree with you, because we are. No, hang on, Stephen. The whole idea of me having this conversation today is, hang on, because they're removing it from the curriculum.
There will always be people.
No, forget about people. We're talking about the Minister for Education. So the Minister for Education is removing this from our curriculum for primary school. So you're telling me that, it's people that will do it. The people in charge are the ones doing it.
Well, will you ask Jane or Elaine or whoever it is on your reception desk to go and Google what the next draft of it says, which I presume hasn't even been finalised.
No, it has. Well, David Quinn just said that it hasn't been finalised, but they have removed this section. Yeah. Well,
then you can still go and have a read of it and give your opinion to your TDs and your councillors and say, this is my point of view.
Stay there. Let me go to Catherine as well. Catherine, hi. How are you doing, Catherine?
Hi, how are you?
Catherine, what would you like to say?
Pardon?
What would you like to say? Do you think we're losing our heritage and our culture?
Well, as I said, I'm not sure advantage anyway. Since the day I was born, I've been looking from the outside in regarding I'm a traveller.
Okay.
And our history is oral, passed down from one to the other. We are matriarchal society, and we have had the best musicians in the world. Pecker Dunn, we had Nan Joyce who tried to run for the Dáil. I could numerous examples I can give you about my culture. But when it comes down to it, and it's because I went to college when I was a mature student, and because of the job I work in, I kind of see all sides of the coin. I think fear is a lot of it, but I'll give you 2 examples. Right? In my job, I'm a people watcher. I do security.
Yeah.
So one day I was in the premises, I was working in the premises. I heard screaming coming out of the toilet. There was a young one in the toilet, about 15, 16 years of age. An older woman was slapping her around and trying to put a scarf on her head. And I said, what's going on? And she, obviously with her mother, said, she has to wear this, blah, blah, blah. And the girl was about 16. And I said, you can't do that to her. I said, if she doesn't want to wear it, she shouldn't have to wear it. She's in Ireland now. It's different here. But then I was in Cairo last year, and I never felt so much repression as the only time I felt that repression was when I was in the institutions, because I was in industrial schools and other institutions, and it put the fear of God into me in Cairo, because I couldn't go out for a cup of coffee. Women aren't served at the coffee shops. You can't go out by yourself without a male escort. You have to be covered top to toe. Not that I'd be walking around anyway, disrespectfully, fake it, but it put the fear of God into me about the repression of women.
And I get it, and a lot of people talk about that, but that is their culture.
What the thing is here,
and we might see it as wrong, but they obviously don't. Okay, but getting back to Ireland, as a member of the travelling community, travellers have seen, their I suppose ethnic status being diluted over the last 40 or 50 years. But the reason for that is because young travellers are now going to college, young travellers are getting more educated, young travellers are getting good jobs, and so it's just time is moving on. It's not a concerted effort to get rid of travellers.
What it is partly is that you can evolve, but you can hold on to your identity and your culture. But sadly, in some cases, you will have in all cultures. Like I was in Toronto a couple of years ago. I looked for Chinatown and I looked for Italy. I found them. I was very disappointed because there was nothing I expected. Okay. And because for the simple reason, the younger generation of those communities weren't following on with what the migrant parents had done.
But can I ask you a question, Catherine? As a traveller, do you speak Cant? Can you speak Cant?
Yeah. Yes, I can.
You can. But how many travellers actually speak Cant now?
In my age group, a lot. In the younger generation,
very few.
Not a lot.
No.
And the thing is, also the fact being is that our language, which annoys me, is turned into street slang. And the fact being is, my mother was a very wise woman. She used to say, each to their own. You live and you let live. What goes on behind your own door is your own business. The problem is that we're so caught up in, there's fear out there, but there's also ignorance. We're so caught up in about the fear. And I get it. I understand it. You look at the history and the attitude towards women in Ireland, I don't care what society you're from, it is brutal. And the fact being is that we don't, it's a recipe for disaster. We don't have, first of all, we don't have health services. We don't have the supports in place. And the fact being is, this is my and I'm not, and by the way, I am not a racist. I will never be a bystander to anyone that has been discriminated against. But I will say one thing. Would you invite 40 people into your house and if you only want chicken?
Yeah. You divide it up. Okay, I'm running out of time here rapidly, Carton, and I'm conscious of the fact Niamh has been waiting ages. Okay, so just finally, do you think we're losing our Irishness?
No, we'd never lose that.
Okay, well, actually, just stay with me for a second. Let me go to Niamh, and I'm so sorry, Niamh, for keeping you so long. I do apologise.
I don't worry.
Niamh,
I don't really have much else to add. Everything's been said, but go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, so Niamh, you've heard Stephen. Stephen is kind of saying, well, look, that's just the way it is. Time moves on, but we will hang on to our Irishness. Maybe not the same way as it is now, but we will hang on to it. But the world is becoming a global village, and we just got to get used to that.
Yeah, no, I was listening to all the points, very good points about different styles and all, but the fact is, when we go on in time, we have different cultures over here, which, by the way, I think I was in the city centre the weekend, and it's fabulous to see all the different cultures, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But, yeah, when we go on in time, it's not, I don't see, it's going to be less and less and less, because when different cultures come in and they started their own little group, they get governed and all. I'm not saying they shouldn't. No, I'm not saying that at all. Of course they should. Well, where the money is and where the power is, things will change in that direction, you know. So it's a tricky one. You can see already. I think for me, everything is happening too fast. That's what it is. It's happening too fast, and it is worrying. And I know, as that lady said there's a lot about fear out there and all. But I do worry, and a lot of points I think Aaron said about it. I think it was.
Yeah. I don't think Stephen sees it the way I see it, because I have a vision of Ireland and Dublin city centre. And, you know, my last real great memory of Dublin city, as the way I remember it, was Mad Mary in the middle of there beside the spire, walking around with her rosary beads, walking down on Christmas Eve down Henry Street and hearing, "Get the last of the cheeky Charlies," and, you know, and somebody else shouting £10 of bananas for whatever it is. But that's all gone. All of that's gone. The Diceman and Grafton Street, all of those. Now, again, I'm hanging on to memories here, and maybe I'm looking back with rose-tinted glasses. Huh?
Yeah, I'm with you. I would rather see that. But I'm not ever going to fight to not have what we have now, if you know what I mean. Because I think people are people, humans.
I mean, look at Moore Street. I mean, Stephen, look at Moore Street, which is which should be the epitome of Dublin and Ireland. You might as well be in Lagos, with the greatest respect. And I don't mean that in some sort of racist way, but you might as well be in some other country. You wouldn't know what country you were in.
I know. Listen, I still have memories of it from my childhood, my teen years, and my 20s, and so on. And it has changed. It has diluted a little bit, but there's still a lot of the Irish sellers there. There are still people there on Henry Street at Christmas and Halloween and things like that, selling their things. And it's nowhere near as big or as prominent as it used to be.
Stephen, when was the last time you were on Moore Street? Walk down Moore Street and Parnell Street. You wouldn't know you were in Ireland. You just would. Parnell Street.
Actually, I don't remember the last time I was on Henry Street.
I mean, that shows you how bad we are at planning things. What we should be doing is integrating people into society. That's not integration.
Hang on, but what is more integrated than having Irish people, presumably, selling fruit and vegetables on market stalls and phone shops set up by Chinese immigrants, or Lidl on the corner, and, you know, different food shops and Irish butchers and all these other kind of things, all on one street.
But hold on. But Moore Street was always about Irishness, and it should have been kept that way. They shouldn't be letting foreign Chinese phone shops open up, or African butchers or whatever it is.
Generations of Irish.
No. But what I'm saying is, when you look at the population of in and around Moore Street, that part of the city, Parnell Street, all around there, it's primarily foreign nationals, right? Now, as I said, I've no problem with people coming to the country, but integrate people across the city. Integrate them across the city, not all in one area. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, but again, number one, it's because the property is as cheap as it is, that it is as dense as it is, that it is as close to, you know, everything else in the city centre, and nobody else wanted it. So people took over houses and made it their own and rented it to the people that were like them because they could trust them.
But Niamh, what does it mean to be Irish, Niamh?
Yeah, that's a tricky one, isn't it? Loads of different. I love the banter. You don't get the same banter anymore. Now, I know you could say boo-hoo, but I miss that. You don't always get that everywhere now anymore. Guys, a few points, not the usual. What's that other lad said? I forget. The Irish dance and the GI music and all
the
that.
GA.
And
yeah.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. The government should have put something in place to keep some things for us. That's where I think all other countries, I can't speak for them all, but I don't know. But every country should keep a bit of their own culture everywhere, and their own, historic buildings and things like that. And as you said, Moore Street, I was devastated.
Nobody's talking about getting rid of any of these buildings.
No, I don't mean that.
With Moore Street, I wholly disagree with what they're doing with the Rebellion House. That should be a proper historical museum, rather than levelling the whole thing and building some godforsaken tourist trap. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So.
I understand things are changing, but you have to keep some things as they were. You just have to. Some
things always will be. They just may not be exactly as you remember.
Okay. I'll just pop up a picture of Moore Street there on the screen. As somebody took a photograph there recently, and just pop that up on the screen there. There's Moore. I don't know whether you're watching video. I'm looking at Moore Street. There's probably 50, 60 people there in that picture. There's not one of those people who are born in this country. Now, I don't want to I don't want this to come across as racist, because that's not the point I'm making. I'm making a point that we need to retain our Irishness. And if we're going to lump everybody who's from a different country or different countries into one area, and I know Stephen mentioned the fact that the property is cheap, maybe that is the case, I don't know, and nobody else wants those properties. I just don't see it appropriate to be opening Chinese phone shops in Moore Street, or African butchers, or I don't know, hairdressers or whatever, in Moore Street. Moore Street, I might be being stupid here and pathetic or whatever it is. You can call me what you want, but I think those kind of things are part of our heritage. You know what I mean? That's really, Moore Street is part of our heritage when it comes to Dublin, for example. And I think destroying those little things, all of those little things, all erodes our identity. Anyway, stay there. Let me go to Nicholas. Nicholas, some of you might disagree with me. You're entitled to disagree with me if you want. Nicholas, hi. How are you, Nicholas?
Hello, Niall. Lovely to speak to you again. And I'm sorry I've missed most of the conversation, so I don't know.
Okay, well, it comes from the fact that we're removing a section of the Irish primary school curriculum, which protects, I suppose, Irishness. And it talks about, our social and artistic expression. And it says Irish education reflects the historical and cultural roots of Irish society and seeks to give children an appreciation for the continuity of the Irish experience and the relationship with it. So they want to remove that from the curriculum. And, David Quinn is saying, if we're not going to foster a sense of Irish identity, who will? You know what I mean? So
yeah, I think education both at home and is, formally is where we should be protecting our identity, our cultural identity. Now, I know, I have friends who are Russian, German, French, go on and on and on. And what they really like about the Irish is our individual personality, our culture, our music, our arts, our writing, our land, and just the way we are as Irish people. And what they're trying to do now is dilute that down to this sort of, sameness. It's like when you go down the high street, you see the same bloody shops everywhere instead of something individual and with a bit of identity to it. I certainly think, and I know you've had conversations before about the Irish language, and I'm not an Irish language speaker. I would have been, like most people, had it bet into me and sort of hated the language because of that. But I recently read a book called 34 Names for a Field by, the author's name escapes, I think it's Mouchon O'Mangan, I think is his name, but that was a real eye-opener into the connection between our language and our culture and our identity. Because I think even us Irish people who are English speakers exclusively, we speak English differently because of our Irish heritage. We express ourselves differently.
Of course, yeah.
And we need to protect that. It's all been watered down.
I think the funniest thing about the Irish, the way we speak English, is we're the only country in the world where you can insult somebody and it's a term of endearment. You know, in other words, you could turn around to your mate and say, "I go on out of that. You're only a bollocks," and that's a term of endearment. There's no other country that happens in.
We're a culture of contradictions, you know, and we're supposed to be, you know, welcoming, and we are very welcoming, and we're very sociable. But we also, there's part of us that hates being social. I love that contradiction. Yeah. I love that sort of thing. But certainly, I do not agree with watering it down. I think we're losing.
Well, how do you retain it? Because, as I said to David Quinn, is it just me, David Quinn, you, and people who might have a slightly conservative view of life, that we're kind of trying to hold on to the past? Because naturally it's disappearing. When I say naturally, I mentioned, for example, teenagers. They're looking at TikTok, they're looking at American television. Most Irish teenagers now have an American accent, which is odd, because they're watching American television, they're listening. So that culture and that Irishness is disappearing. Ask the average 15-year-old who Michael Collins is. They haven't got a clue. And nor do they care about the men in 1916 standing outside the GPO. They couldn't care less. They don't even know about the IRA anymore. That stuff is now gone. That's past them. You know, so... You know, they don't care. All they care about is the Kardashians and Taylor Swift. You know what I mean?
I think, I know, and that's understandable. We all had, you know, that is very understandable. I actually think those same people, when they get a bit older, and that if they have an awareness of their past, it'll change who they are. They'll give more meaning and purpose to who they are in terms of their national identity, you know, their cultural identity. And I think the past, whether we like it or not, the past informs our future. You know, if you forget your past, you start to, well, not only do you lose your culture, but you also start to lose your real identity. You know, and it's what makes us. Like I said, I have friends from all sorts of different backgrounds, Germany and French, and what I love about them is their Frenchness, their Germanness, you know what I mean? There's something that makes them uniquely special. And that's what they love about the Irish as well, you know? And I think this is what we're losing. It's not this kind of nostalgia for the past. It's who we are. Whether we like it or not, it's who we are.
Okay, well, do me a favour, Nicholas. Just stay there for a second. Let me go to Bernie as well. Sure. Bernie, hi, how are you?
I'm grand. How are you today?
Good. Bernie, is it possible to hold on to our Irishness in a changing world?
Well, I'm doing my best. I mean, I still call it a pound of mince. You know, give me a pint of milk.
By the way, I'm the same. I go into when I'm buying tiles or anything like that. How much you need? Well, the room is 4 foot by, you know what I mean? By 3.5 yards. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have friends who are of European origin, and they're all talking in centimetres and millimetres, and they're looking at me sideways, and I'm going in. I said, I don't know. I'm not spending all day measuring centimetres and metres.
Well, see, the British, for some reason, never moved to that, do they? No, they're still feet and yards. They're still miles per hour. They never moved to the metric system, do they?
Yeah, no, and you're still driving at 80 miles an hour in your head.
Yeah, I know. I have never changed to kilometres. Never. In my head, it's miles per hour. Always miles per hour. And it's...
The butcher, you go into the butcher's now, and here in the village, and I said, I want 2 pounds of mince today. He knew it was whatever it was. He knew well what I was looking for.
Of course he does. Yeah.
And the pound of sausages. I mean, I'm sure they're in kilograms, but I wasn't going to change it. You know what I mean? Because I have no idea. And my grandchildren who are with me are all teenagers, and they know all about Michael Collins and 1916, and they're very interested in it. They love horse lips. They love, they love all the
horse
Irish. Remember horse lips?
I do, yeah. Of course, Derek Doom.
Yeah, so they know all about Irish music. I play it here, and they're probably ashamed, embarrassed, but they listen and they know what it is. And they're very much, and they're the future. Like they're all in their teenage, from 17 down to 10. And they are getting to know their Irish. They're very proud of their Irish heritage. And I would not like to see that change in their school curriculum. And I know
but the problem for young people, it's not about even so much the school curriculum, and that's a problem, obviously, that David Quinn points out today, is that they're removing that section from the curriculum. It's not even about the curriculum. And I know you mentioned Jack, who's 14 years of age. It's about what they're learning outside of school. So it's about what they're watching on television, social media, TikTok, people who talk like that with American accent.
Well, I can tell you now, I kind of get, but they're not interested in the Kardashians. They're interested in their rugby teams, their Liverpool, Manchester, whoever. Their GAA, they're learning hurling. that's the way they are. They're very interested and proud. They know about their farming background. They're interested in growing up and helping their granddad on his farm. That's
But
what
we've
they're
never,
about.
I mean, Jack makes a really good point that your 14-year-old, or well, he's a grandson, I assume. And he says we're losing it due to British rule, right? Now, you could argue British rule is gone many, many years ago, but it never really went away because it's still there. Because technically speaking, we're guided by British television, by British news. We're constantly being controlled in some sense by Britain. In that sense, I suppose it's kind of hidden, So it's always been there and it always has been there. And it's not going to go away because it's a bigger country and they're right beside us. And unfortunately sorry, Nicholas.
Sorry, no, that's true because even our law is a cut and paste from British law. I mean, do you know what I mean? We never really lost the Brits. Yeah. And I have some great British friends, by the way, who love the Irish. And but on your point on Moore Street there, my father was born literally a stone's throw from Moore Street. And like I was brought up with, I had coddle for breakfast every morning.
Jeez. Maybe that's one thing about Ireland I wouldn't mind seeing disappear when I get mind. My mother used to make coddle.
I hated it at first, but when I used to get it presented to me at 6 a.m. in the morning because it was early. You had to get up to work early, and I hated it at first. And then I got to love it. Still love it.
Bernie, do you still make a coddle?
No, Jesus, I tried. I mean, listen, I've half Culture genes and half Dublin genes. I'm an awful mix. So you can see coddle until I got married and my husband's mother, God bless her, used to make coddle. And what's the other shite? Tripe.
Oh, tripe. Oh, jeez.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so you're a dub that left Dublin and went to Galway, so you're a mongrel, really.
Well, Niall,
I am.
Yeah, sorry.
I've moved down to County Wexford now, so I'm in the townland of Bunclody now.
Right.
The people down here are just amazing, wonderful people, real Irish people, and they've got great character.
I suppose,
they're
you make a good point,
people.
actually, Nicholas. When you go outside of the pale, so to speak, I suppose there's more Irishness than there is inside the pale. But when you're in, say, Dublin City, or even maybe Cork City as well, particularly Galway, not so much. You're seeing this metropolitan city grow, and you're seeing this diversity and this change in the population that you don't see.
Dublin,
like, for example, I go up and down to Belfast, as you know, most all the time, right?
Yeah.
And Belfast is very different to Dublin because Belfast hasn't seen that change. For example, when migrants are coming into the country, they're not staying in Belfast or Northern Ireland. They're coming to Ireland because the land of opportunity. It's a better opportunity. So you don't see that cultural change in Northern Ireland that you're seeing in Dublin. It's completely different.
I mean, I was up there lately at one of the protests, just as a peaceful protest, and I was shocked. The GPO, it was nobody Irish standing outside the GPO once everybody had moved away from the protesting situation. It was all people of foreign, outside of Europe even, and they were hanging around all day. And I actually felt uncomfortable because that's where I used to go in and collect my stamps and paying me a bit of money when I was living in Dublin. You know, that was my post office, and you knew where everything was. You got your TV license in there, you paid, and you wouldn't go into it now, and that's really bad.
But are we all before I come to Rory? Can I just ask you, Barry? Are we all fooling ourselves thinking we can hang on to Irishness forever?
No, but the Italians have held on to Italy for centuries. They haven't changed anything. The French are doing their best to hold on to their country. The Spanish, everywhere you go, they're still speaking the language. They still have all the signs. They haven't changed any of their buildings. We seem to be wanting to knock down stuff that we should be keeping, and that's wrong. Like, I'm in Shop Street here in Galway. I mean, you would hardly it's so multicultural that, it's all the high street shops from, England and, phone shops. And they still have the buildings, thankfully, and they still have the claddagh. But, I mean, imagine if they start taking them out. We'll have nothing.
Okay, well, hang on. Let me just go to Rory as well. Rory, hi, how are you?
Not bad, Niall. How are you?
We sound like a bunch of Irish people here clinging on desperately to our Irishness with some sort of level of fear that it's going to disappear. Are we delusional?
No, I think you're right. I mean, I don't want to be dramatic, but it's kind of under attack. Like it's on the one hand this culture, this weird kind of global rainbow-coloured culture where it's straight back to Mao's China. Everyone has to be the same, which is it's very boring apart from anything else. But it seems that we have to abandon parts of our culture to accommodate mainly people, and I admire them in ways, will not abandon any aspect of their culture. I mean, that's really why we have to we have to cede this territory. I'm very interested in the question, what is Ireland and what is Irishness? There's a statement in that question. I mean, like, no one would ask that of a Nigerian. Like, when someone asks that question, I know you did in a hypothetical, but it's kind of like, I know full well French Normans came here, like Danish Vikings, Celts, Anglo-Saxons, all the rest of it. But it's kind of like, when people ask that question, it's trying to kind of undermine what it is to be Irishness, and again to kind of cede this territory. But it's not.
Yeah, you wouldn't ask somebody in France what's Frenchness. No, you're right. You wouldn't. Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of Europeans are being asked that. I mean, certainly immigrant populations aren't being asked that question. It would be racist to ask that question, probably, even though there's a lot of tribes and whatever else. And I mean, white people all came from the Caucasus Mountains. I think no one would say we're Russians. Like, it's just seems to be. It's weird, isn't it? But I suppose the upside is my grandparents are native Irish speakers, so I've gone back to. I was a great Gaeilgeoir as a kid, but I've gone back to it because as defence, really. Like, I mean, it's to preserve their legacy, because I don't see, even history was downgraded. The teaching of history was downgraded a few years ago. Mm-hmm. Again, we have to make all of these accommodations.
But here's the thing: are we doing it intentionally? Is it happening intentionally? When I say intentionally, in other words, are we enabling this problem, or is it a case that this is just the world we live in, Rory, and we're a bit older, and we kind of are hanging on to the past. I'm hanging on to, Italia 90 and all that kind of carry on, and that old Irishness, where realistically I have to succumb to the fact that the world has changed. People communicate much easier. They can FaceTime each other across the world. They can watch videos on YouTube and social media where people speak different languages and different accents. English is the most common spoken language in the world. It's not the most popular language in the world, but the most common spoken language in the world. And yet we just have to accept that it's becoming that all cultures to some degree are starting to dilute into one big culture.
I don't think that's natural. I think people want a sense of kind of what's unique to them, and what's unique to them is it's unique to them because it's not like so many other. I mean, I want to experience. If I go to Italy, I want to meet some Italians who serve me Italian food, or similarly with Nigeria, anywhere else, some of them. But I don't think it. I'm all for multicultural, and I have a pluralistic sense of. I mean, I've enjoyed a lot of aspects of various cultures and cuisines and all that. I know you have to share in return. You can't just take, but. There seems to be something unnatural of blending everyone kind of together, and a lot of people who will not disavow their own culture, any aspect of it.
Yeah, but we're expected to stay there. Well, stay there, Rory. You make a really good point. Sophia, hi.
Hi. How are you doing, Niall?
I'm good. Sophia, okay, firstly, nobody seems to know exactly what Irishness is. ChatGPT gave me an answer there, but it's a bit long-winded, so I'm not going to answer it. I'm not going to read it all out. But in saying that, are we kind of clinging on to something that we're not going to be able to cling on to?
It depends on which way you look at it. It seems to be like, for example, the Irish language is being taught very badly in schools. When I left school, I could speak fluent French, but I couldn't speak a word of Irish. Yeah. And that was because we started with the verbs in French. So you learned all the verbs, and then, you learned all the grammar.
I was the same, yeah.
It's not like that in Irish school. Now, my son went to an all-Irish school, and I was speaking fluent Irish by the time he was 6, or in 6th class. So he was fluent Irish as well. And it seems to me that, unless you go to an Irish school, they don't really encourage people to speak their language or to teach it properly in school.
It has always been a case that has been taught badly. If I go right back to when I was in school, the same as yourself, I learned Irish, from the age of 4 up to the age of 18. I didn't know any of it when I came out, but yet I only did French for 2 years, and I knew more French than I did Irish. So it's obviously the way it's being taught, but that's one aspect of it. Only 12,000 people use the Irish language on a daily basis in this country of 5 million people, so that's not a lot. 70,000 people speak it fluently. Most of those would be school teachers, probably. So realistically, the Irish language has always suffered badly, but the rest of what is Irish, I mean, I've just been indigenously Irish. You hear people complaining about diversity. I don't complain about diversity. I think it's great. It's wonderful. We wouldn't have the population we have if it wasn't for it. But in saying that, people want to retain our Irishness. In other words, if you're coming here from Nigeria, or you're coming here from Afghanistan, or wherever it is, and you want to live in Ireland, well, then you must be part of it. You can't have your own culture in Ireland because you must adopt an Irish culture. Is that fair?
Well, I mean, I have a sort of extreme views on that in a sense, because I do think that they're diluting the gene pool in Ireland, and I think tribalism is natural for people to congregate together who are of the same tribe. they're not really here to assimilate as much as we think they are. It's going to get very ghettoized like it is in Paris, and they have riots in Paris as well over any small thing, and they don't go up in arms like they did when the riots happened.
That could all change in the next 2 weeks, by the way, with Marine Le Pen, of course, doing extremely well at the moment. That could change.
So it seems to be a pattern across Europe, and I think anybody who sticks their head up and says, I don't believe in this post-colonial psychology, I don't think we should be trying to rise to the colonials' authority like we have. Everything, even positions of power like the RTE Attorney General, they're British, come from BBC. It's making us look like a region of the UK because all of these top jobs are taken up in bureaucratic circles and in NGOs are taken up from people from the UK, and it is an assimilation of their culture into our own. So
they just gave another top job away in RTE yesterday for head of video in RTE. It's a new position because there has been a moratorium on hiring, but they've a new position they've created, head of video, and it was given to a guy from BBC Scotland.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no look in for people from, they have to sort of, they're given positions of power. I've seen it across the board over years. Of just even courses that were done in agriculture when I was living in County Clare was run by this English woman, and she pretty much kicked us out. She had a full authority. She wouldn't, take a, it was a very strange situation, I thought, and I have seen that across the board when I've been involved in protesting as well. Just people who join the protest movements are actually of that ilk that they don't want the protest to be successful. And that's the museum house there on Henry Street, which Mr. Heron was trying to stop being turned into a shopping centre. So we are a small minority now in our own country, or that's the way it will be. But this is. And
does that really worry you, Sophia? That we're going to be a minority?
So we are going to be a minority. We're a small culture. We've only, we are very slow to have children. Unlike migrants, they have a lot of children.
Well, 1.5 children. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very expensive. It's $250,000 to raise a child to the age of 18 in Ireland. But, they are diluting the gene pool. They want to disseminate. They want these people who are influxing from all over the world to vote for people who are in power and give them power. And it is all about power, sex, and money at the end of the day.
So, well, do me a favour, hang on, as I have a load of people to get it. Sophia, if you want to stay with me there just for a second, let me go to Carl as well. Carl, hi, how are you?
How's it going, Niall? First of all, coddle is one of the greatest dishes in Ireland,
Jesus,
so don't be saying anything negative about a good
little white sausages and white rashers. Nah, I don't know. My ma used to make it. I didn't like it. Never liked coddle. I like a good Irish stew, a good brown stew, all right? Yeah, a good nice beef stew.
You can't beat a stew or a coddle, yeah.
Anyway, Carl, listen, by the way, thank you for all the help that you gave us with the canvassing over the 8 weeks. I really appreciate it.
No, I'm happy to do it,
We nearly made it. Anyway.
Nearly did.
Carl, do you think we're losing our Irishness?
A little bit. I think it's kind of, we're kind of pandering to other kind of cultures, which, I'm all for diversity. I work with a lot of people from different cultures, different backgrounds. But I really noticed when I was in Krakow in Poland there a couple of weeks ago, it just really felt like they're holding on to that culture between their foods and their beers, and I just really felt that I was kind of embracing their culture, and I love that when you're going away, you're trying other people's kind of cultures, their foods, and everything else. I remember when I was in the main square, and there's this cathedral there, and on the hour, every hour, there's a trumpet player that plays, and it's from their history because he plays this song. And at the end, it just gets cut off because he was shot with an arrow or something like that. But that's gone back hundreds of years. He used to warn off enemies.
Yeah.
And I remember I was sitting there looking around the square, and I seen loads of school tours of young kids, kind of like in junior schools, going around with their teachers. And then my missus is Polish, so I didn't really know what they were saying. I was like, is that a school tour? And so she could kind of hear them. She was like, yeah, they're teaching them about, that cathedral and the man that's playing the history of it. And I was like, geez, you don't really see that in O'Connell Street or around the GPO. Back at home.
I'm sure the schools do tours. I'm sure they do.
You wouldn't on Connell Street these days? I don't know.
Maybe not on Connell Street. But when I was a kid, we used to get brought to the National History Museum and stuff like that. I'm sure they still do that. You know what I mean?
I think that's a little bit less seen. around town these days.
Is it?
Like that as well, though. You know, like when the elections there, some people that are getting elected hold up an Irish flag, and it was seen like something of like a racist or this whole
far right nationalism. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, where you see people with Palestinian flags and they're being lauded, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't get that. I don't get the idea that we're not allowed to put up our own flag, but if you put up a Palestinian flag, you're a hero. You know what I mean?
I know, like, you were saying earlier on that there was some guy who was saying that the school curriculum shouldn't be taught about Ireland's history. I mean, that flag represents our freedoms under British rule.
Well, I don't want to exaggerate what was said. In the school curriculum, the primary school curriculum, they've removed a paragraph which talks about protecting Irish culture for children. And they've removed this paragraph, and David Quinn has just asked him why they've removed it, because he said basically the state is about to ditch the aim of fostering a sense of Irish identity, and if we don't foster it or we don't promote it, who will? So that's the point he's kind of making, which is a fair point. You know what I mean?
But I also heard that there was an article released there recently by Grit, and they were saying that an NGO was talking about young white children are walking around with an invisible bag of privilege. Like this kind of nonsense that's come. I really feel like it's just being peddled and it's being pushed by NGOs and ministers that are in there. I mean, remember Varadkar was talking about in the civil service, the position
was too many white people.
It's very white, and it's just like, what are you talking about? Like, you know, is that not actually racist to say that? Like, imagine.
Of course, I believe it is. Yeah, there's this kind of idea of affirmative action, which they did in America many years ago, which was that you had to hire a certain amount of, people, with black skin or brown skin or whatever it was. I mean, that's complete and utter nonsense. That doesn't work. You hire the best person for the job. Skin colour should never ever even be mentioned. Stay there for a second, Carl. Dave, hi, how are you?
What's crack?
How you doing, Dave? I'm sorry, I'm probably taking people in the wrong order here. Anyway, Dave, do you think we're losing our sense of Irishness?
No, I really don't. Like, specifically...
Yeah, but you're in the arsehole of nowhere.
Now, you see here, I know here, you
temporary.
Brought it up for you. No, nice one, you're feed meter up, Niall. You're talking about Dublin, and I will admit, anytime I go to Dublin, I find Dublin, it's like a city without a soul. It's like it doesn't know what it is anymore. And I will agree there that a lot of the charm, if it ever had any, that Dublin had is lost. And it is being lost to the banner of, let's make it a European cosmopolitan city. I'll agree that's
okay. So we're agreeing. So that's it. That's grand. Thanks, Dave. See you next caller. No, I'm just saying. See, you're in the middle of Tipperary. It doesn't matter. You still see cows in fields, and play the bear on in the local pub at night, you do all those things.
Because going out into a field with cows and playing the bear on is the quintessential Irish experience. Do you want to just start fucking quoting Darby O'Gill?
I bet you have a shillelagh hanging on the back of the door, do you? Yeah.
You realise down here as well, if you want to go out with somebody, you still have to use a matchmaker. You know that, right?
Yeah, you have a shillelagh on the door. That's what I said, at the back of the door.
No, but listen, Irish culture, right, and our Irish identity is it's intrinsically linked with our history, right?
Yeah.
And we are surrounded by our history. They're like a perfect example. We like kids in school, right? Halloween comes along, we teach about Halloween, but they also learn about Samhain. They also learn about like the roots of Halloween and where it comes from. They still celebrate the winter solstices, the equinoxes, all that kind of stuff. That's stuff that's existed in this country and is a part of our culture since before Christianity.
You're using that as an example. So the kids come knocking on your door, right? Now, I don't know about Tipperary, but certainly
I'm not talking about Halloween. I know Halloween is a bastardized. It's a bastardized, Americanized
and they go, and they didn't do it in my day, but they do it now. Trick or treat.
I'll agree with you, but...
What happened to have the Halloween party?
But still, they learn about the roots of it, which is a 2,000-year-old tradition. I mean, you were saying about younger people, right? Walk around with American accents. I'd love to see where you're meeting young people, because I don't see it, right?
I hear it all the time.
Young fellas all around rural Ireland are... involved in agriculture come silage season because, well, A, it's a part of our traditions, and B, it's cheap labour for the farmers, so happy days. You're also talking about, like they're not into Irish music. The Wolf Tones, when they played at the Electric Picnic, had, their tent had one of the largest crowds the Electric Picnic has ever seen assembled for one gig. That was a majority of Irish people.
Well, yeah, but what age group were they? What age group were they?
They were all like your 18 to mid-20s. There's a massive uptick recently of younger people getting into that kind of stuff. Like even I had a friend who was at a Christy Moore concert recently, and they said they were actually shocked at the amount of young people who are at it. So there's actually a resurgence in Irish culture at the moment, and in younger people getting involved in Irish culture. And I've been to Kilkee, Lahinch, Doolin, Dingle. I've been up and down the West Coast, and it is nothing but Irish culture.
Okay, we'll stay there, Dave. And I want you to stay with me, Dave, please, if they could leave you on there for a second, because I want Tony just to respond to what you're saying. Tony, you've heard Dave. We're talking through our hats here. He's seeing it. There's a resurgence of Irish culture. We're not losing our identity at all.
No, I can understand what Dave is saying, because I heard the Wolf Towns as well was packed out with young Irish people.
Yeah, it was, I believe. Yeah.
It was, okay. Now, are them Irish people like the same Irish people who's going to leave that and then turn into wokies when they get back to normal life?
What do you mean turn into wokies when they get back to normal life?
Because what happens is, like, they're oppressed. There's a lot of people in colleges and schools who can't actually say how they feel about things. Through teachers and through NGOs and things like that. They can't honestly say how they feel. As you said, like, waving an Irish flag now is regarded
as a negative thing.
Yeah, but just like as a far right act.
Yeah, you're a nationalist. Yeah, you're some sort of extreme nationalist.
Like, what's wrong with being a nationalist? Like, what is wrong with being a nationalist? Okay, now we had our Taoiseach, as the previous caller said, saying the civil service is too wide. He wouldn't get away with that in any foreign country. We had the Taoiseach then, who said his words were for to block sovereignty, like this outdated, he said this outdated idea of sovereignty.
Well, I think it was Niall Martin said that, yeah.
Yeah, but just like it's a backward ideology. Yeah, he talks about Israel and the Ukraine having their sovereignty. So, I mean, make up their mind. Either he's for sovereignty or he's not. But yes, our culture is being diluted quickly. There's only a small population oil here. We will be swallowed up in no time. 32% now of North Inner City Dublin is Indigenous Irish. 32%.
I didn't realise it was that low. That's just one part of the city. I know Fingal, the area of Fingal is quite high in relation to, or quite low in relation to Indigenous people. But
to have this level of immigration.
But that's just bad. Hang on, that's bad integration policy. That's nothing to do with the people.
It's bad policy. It's just bad policy.
Well, I mentioned that already. And well, hang on. Let me just put that to Dave. Dave, bad integration policy. When you've got, and I mentioned Moore Street, Parnell Street, all that whole area. You walk up there, you would not know you're in Ireland anymore. That's bad. That's not good.
Yeah, no, it is. And yeah, but you know what though, right? The same people that complain about Moore Street, all the stalls are gone and this is gone, that's gone. Did those people actually like regularly shop there? Or are they just, doing like, I remember Dublin City in the rare old times. Like, I don't disagree. Like, you see new buildings going, like the Georgian buildings in Dublin are fabulous. They're beautiful architecture, and the people deciding to put up the buildings now need to be slapped across the head with a shillelagh. Let's keep it Irish here, lads. Like, I understand that, but like, I keep hearing people saying but I keep hearing like, right, we're losing our identity. And look, Dublin's a shithole. Okay, Dublin's being forgotten about because of money and just ineptitude. Right? I have to remind you. Dublin isn't the only part of Ireland, okay? And I know people in Dublin forget that, to do the whole, I'm going down the country, better get the old passport shtick.
Yeah, it's a third of the population, mind you.
Huh?
It's a third of the population of the country, so we have to be careful.
And you know what? And keep it that way, because that's one of the things I love about the country. It's sparsely populated. No,
sorry. What are you saying, Tony? Sorry, what did you say, Tony?
And it's the same as the finance. Like, it's all in Dublin.
Yeah, most of the money comes from Dublin, in fairness, Dave. You wouldn't have your shillelaghs down there.
No, but listen, we can survive without you, all right?
These little towns out on their own, they're not going to survive.
Yeah,
It's the money from the centre of Dublin that's keeping them going. And that's giving you roads there as well.
Be thankful, Dave, for us Jackines.
It's only because of Dublin we have
up to the big smoke sale.
Dave comes up to Dublin every Christmas to see the moving stairs.
You're all right. Lads, you're right. It's a good thing, we have Dublin, or we wouldn't have Aldi's or Lidl's or Tesco's. No, but this is the thing, right?
You don't have them. They're Polish or German.
Lads, I'm going way over time here. Hang on, Dave and Tony. Let me just bring Jack in as well. Jack, hi. And I'm going to go to Jackie as well. I think that's it then. Jackie, hi. Or Jack. Hi. Jack, yeah, sorry.
Jack, yeah. How are you, Niall? Nice to talk to you.
Good, Jack. Jack, are we losing our culture?
Look, it's kind of, I suppose, other parts seem to be more affected in this country than others. Like, I'm from Dingle there now, and what did your card was previously alluded to? You go to Dingle, it's still fairly Irish.
Oh, it is very Irish, yeah. Diddly idle, yeah.
But like then if you go up the country, then say the Cork and Dublin, obviously, I could barely see an Irish person in Cork or Dublin. You know,
you nearly need a passport to get into Dublin now.
That's the thing, like, so I think it's in those cities, definitely, I would say you definitely lose their culture in those cities, but in rural areas now as well, I'd say it's not as bad yet. But again, if they continue on this path of mass immigration, then that's only going to lead to one way,
Replacing the population eventually and becoming a minority in your own country.
Yeah, example for where I'm from now, there's a lot of Ukrainian kids and they put them in the Gaeltacht and they have to actually change from teaching them in Irish to English. So,
okay. Well, that's not a good thing, is it? That's not integration.
No.
You know what I mean?
And that's where the government is failing, really, integration of these people.
Yeah. I mean, Dave, nobody wants, this kind of theoretical situation of in 50 years' time that Irish people become a minority in their own country. I mean, nobody wants that, do they? I mean,
of course you don't. But
we also don't want a declining population either.
No, but I'm just curious about like what that guy said there about like the Ukrainian kids going to the Gaeltacht. Like, are they teaching? Like, are they using speaking to them in English and then teaching them Irish in that way, or like are they still trying to teach them Irish? Is what I'm asking.
As far as I know, no. As far as I know, they aren't. No, as far as I know, I think
they're just speaking to them in English.
They have to basically they have to change to English to teach. They have to teach everything through English.
That's not really integration. That's modification, isn't it? Yeah, that's not the same thing.
Yeah, no, it is.
Yeah.
And by the way, that shouldn't be happening. If they're going to accommodate children in an education system in the Gaeltacht, well, they should have to do what everybody else does. I don't care where they're from.
But sorry, Niall, to be fair, that's at least what those people owe us. They're coming into the country and we're providing all this assistance for them. At the very least, they owe us to integrate into this country's culture.
Yeah. I know I would agree with you completely. We shouldn't be adapting and modifying our own culture to suit somebody else who's probably only going to be here temporarily anyway. We shouldn't be adapting and modifying our own culture. That's not. I
agree to another caller there. He said there that he went to the Wolf Tones there and stuff, and he went to Christy Moore, and it's all young people. But that is very true too. That a lot of the young people are they're the ones who are out there speaking Irish, and they're going to all these gigs, these rebel songs and all that.
Okay, well, hopefully that keeps up as well. Let me just go finally, if I can, to Jackie. Jackie, hi, how are you?
Great, Niall. I'm laughing at some of the stuff. I was just thinking there, we could cut off Dublin and let it float out a bit.
Yeah,
here. And
I'd rather cut Tipperary off, to be honest with you, but whatever.
Oh no, but
so would I
live over the bridge from Portumna in Laura, which is County Tipperary as well. So I live with the.
Do you know Dave? You can't miss him.
I don't, but in fair play, I agree with
He's a big lad.
Was saying there.
I love Portumna. It's a beautiful spot.
It is on the Shannon, and look, we get overrun with all these Dublin Land Rovers and Porsches that lads are going up and down the town at 90 kilometres an hour. It's unbelievable.
You go, all right, is this the country, is it? Bleeding shy.
Anyway, going back to just a couple of things. I was listening to most of the show, and I hate to hear people always saying or apologising, I'm not racist. Isn't it funny how we're being gagged where you want to say something which is common sense and true and that, but you can't. You're going, oh, geez, that would sound like that I'm racist. So everyone is apologising now for, well, I'm, starting off with saying, well, I'm not racist.
But.
Yeah, so that's one thing.
Yeah.
So what's wrong with flying the Irish flag?
No, there's nothing wrong with it.
I mean,
and there's nothing wrong with wanting. And that I did actually say I'm not racist earlier on when I was talking about Moore Street and the surrounding areas. Yeah. And my quote was, when you walk into Moore Street now, you feel like you're in Lagos. I mean, and it shouldn't feel like that. You shouldn't feel like you're in a foreign country.
Okay, and just another point. My niece was just dropped off in Connemara there, Gael School, and my brother was just telling me all along, like for miles ahead of, there was stewards out on the road directing traffic, that there was that amount of people, young people heading out there, for the 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. So it's great to see that the Irish language, that there is an interest there. My own son is 17 years of age, and he studies history in his own time because he cannot learn the stuff in the school because they're not teaching, the kind of going back far enough or whatever. He loves the Irish. And the other thing is, then about the music, if you take at the minute around the country, you have whistling donkeys, the tumbling paddies, the likes of your Mike Denvers and all these guys. They're drawing huge crowds, and it's young people who are interested in traditional country, Irish country music, whatever as well. So there is...
I couldn't go to one of those gigs. I'm sorry. I know I love Irish culture. I lose the will to live.
The whistling donkeys are fucking unreal.
The whistling donkeys.
The whistling donkeys are savage. They do a song called Beeswing. I tell you, it'll move you to tears.
Yeah.
Well, probably not you because you're a crotchety old shite bag, but a normal person it would.
And just another thing, Niall, I remember going back 2 or 3. I remember going back 2 or 3 years ago, having a meeting with Falch Ireland, a couple of people from Falch Ireland, and I was saying to them, look, what is the main attraction that brings the tourists into Ireland? Now, they named, all the various spots around, like Connemara, Clare, whatever, and that.
Trinity College, Guinness's, yeah.
Okay, and I said, would music be any part of this? And they said, oh no, that's way down the line here. And then they went on to list the festivals, like the Rory Gallagher Festival, the certain thing in Galway, whatever.
The Father Ted Festival, yeah.
And I said, do you not realise that's based on music? And they said, oh, well, it still has that doesn't bring tourists into Ireland. And I could not believe it.
Well, I imagine some of the big things are like the ploughing. The ploughing probably brings loads of people into Ireland. The likes of Liston Varna brings loads of people into Ireland. All those kind of
100%.
things. Yeah, absolutely. They're huge. Listen, lads, thanks you. August, what was I going to say? Slán while you and sorry.
Yeah. And stay in Dublin. Stay up there.
And let's all go and see Declan Ernie. I swear, I'd rather just lose the will to live.
100%.
No, I'd rather die. Listen, lads, thanks very much. See you, Dave. See you, Jackie. All right, listen, thank you to everybody who got involved in the show today. We did find out somewhat in the end what Irishness was. But anyway, I do worry about Irishness. Like David Quinn, I do worry that if we're not going to promote it and kind of foster it, as they say, it's odd, actually, that in the curriculum, they didn't even have ChatGPT in those days, and they talked about stating the state is about to ditch the fostering a sense of Irish identity. It's like something that was written by ChatGPT, isn't it? And they didn't have ChatGPT in those days. Anyway, thank you to everybody who got involved in the show. Please do support the show. We're into a new month. Bills have to be paid, so please, I know you get sick of me saying it, but it's really important, because if you don't support the show, we don't have a show. We love to give you this platform every day, uncensored. You can say what you want, I can say what I want, it's great. We don't have a broadcasting authority or commission demand telling us what we can and can't say. You can say what you want, within the realms of legalities, obviously. So please do support us to continue to do that. And not only that, we will be giving you the information very soon on our next project, which is going to be even bigger. And we've been saying this for months, but it's finally almost ready. And I can't tell you. I was going to tell you the name of it, but I can't. No, he told me not to tell you. I promise I'll tell you tomorrow. We'll have more information tomorrow, right? And we want you to support it, but it is going to be a conservative media organisation. It's not just one show. It's a media organisation. And we're putting that together, hopefully to launch it in a few months' time. But we'll need your support and your help, as well as the help of investors who we're talking to currently at the moment as well. So please do support us. We want to be an alternative. We're sick, like you, of listening to RTE and News Talk, which would be the main two news outlets in this country, and Virgin Media, of course, for that Poxy Tonight show that they have. We're sick of them because they're left-leaning. It's a single narrative. That's all they do. That's all they talk about. They don't let anybody with alternative views on, alternative voices. I've seen that myself. So please do support us. We want to make it bigger. We want to make it something that's going to be noticeable, something that politicians will have no choice but to come on to if they want to get elected, etc., etc. So please do help us to do that by supporting us at niallboylan.com. You can pay $5.99 a month for a subscription, or if you can, please donate. You can donate a $5, you can donate a $10, you can donate 6 million quid if you want to. You can donate whatever you like on the website, a small or a large amount, or you can subscribe for $5.99 a month, which is like just buying us a cup of coffee, because we don't get paid for doing this. I have a radio job, as you know, thankfully again, that pays my wages. I don't get paid for this. So please support us, niallboylan.com. We'll talk again tomorrow at the same time. Until then, have a great day.
The multi-award-winning Niall Boylan Podcast. Listen live on Facebook, YouTube, and all the usual live stream services. To get in touch, just WhatsApp or text 085 100 2255. The Niall Boylan Podcast. They told me to shut up. Available for download from all your usual platforms.